Chris Speaks back here today with Brandon Mosley for our BCS State of Alabama podcast. We have John Bowling with us, who is going to be a Senate candidate in District 4, challenging the incumbent Senator Gutcher. Is that how you say his name?
Garland Gudger. He's the Senate.
Garland Gudger. Yeah. Mr. Bowling is currently a manager for the state's largest vegetable oil production company. He previously ran for the State House in 2018, and he has been a volunteer fireman for the last 20 years. John, how are you, sir?
Good. Yeah.
I'm great.
You're doing good.
So what got me interested in your Facebook page is I seen that you said that Montgomery was lacking leadership. Now, did you mean like through the whole legislature or your district in particular?
Well, from the results we've seen over this last session, I'm going to say it's the whole legislature. I'm not saying everybody's bad, but, without the right leadership, it's that kind of the results you get out of anything is determined on the leadership.
What specifically do you think they did not get done that you think they should have?
Well, they kicked the overtime bill down the road.
They let that expire.
They let that expire. They didn't address, as one of the library bills wasn't addressed. They went down the rabbit hole again with our two Second Amendment rights. Seems like, we're letting Democrats out of Birmingham dictate what we do with gun legislation in the state. I wasn't real happy with that. You went in and made a state law for something that was already illegal federally. So there's just a lot of.
We're talking about the Glock switch ban.
The Glock switch ban. I mean, criminals aren't buying this stuff out of the local gun shops. So wasting taxpayers' time and money passing bills that are already federally illegal to begin with, you're not doing us any favors.
Doesn't that allow local DAs to prosecute if they find a criminal with a federally illegal Glock switch? Otherwise, it can only be handled by federal court.
Well, that person that's got it's more than likely a prohibited person anyway. So there's plenty of avenues to go after them. It's not your law-abiding, gun-toting citizen that's got it. It's going to be the person that's not supposed to have a gun to begin with. Because legal gun owners they don't have these things anyway.
What did you think about the legislature not passing the bill dealing with allowing more enforcement like ICE agents here with our illegals?
I wasn't aware of that one, so you just hit me with one I'm gonna have to go look up now.
Did I get that right, Brandon?
I'd have to look that bill up to see if it got to the governor's desk or not. I know they did pass some anti-illegal immigration bills, and I know that one was one the governor asked for and was in the process. But without looking it up, I can't tell you for sure what happened to that one.
Okay, because I don't want to say something.
It wasn't one I was following very closely.
The biggest thing that got me involved, I was focused in a different direction than this, was Senate Bill 322. That's what didn't sit well with me. That's what pushed me into this race.
And which one is that one exactly?
It is the Smith Lake bill is what we call it locally. They passed a bill letting the city of Cullman annex land at Smith Lake 30 miles outside of the city limits into the city, against the wishes of the county citizens and of the county commission. County commission passed a resolution opposing the bill. We also had no representation in the state house. Both of our representatives had already resigned by this point. So it was a bad bill. It should have been tabled.
Was this a local bill or a statewide bill?
It's going to affect the entire state. It was for a entertainment development district. They've got another term for that, but it was introduced by Jabo Wagner out of Jefferson County, and it's the name of it's got Cullman in it. It specifically says Cullman, but in the wording, it's got the Entertainment Development District. So that affects multiple places around the state, not just Cullman.
Is that what you were talking about when you said that people in your district was upset, or is there some other issues they're upset
Yes.
about? Yeah.
That's what they're upset about. Everybody,
So how much land are we talking about now that Cullman will control and they'll be able to do the zoning for?
2,500 acres is what I was told was involved in this project. But of course, I've been in the middle of stuff at work, so my workload's been to the point where some of the information I've gotten, I haven't went back and double checked, but I was told it's 2,500 acres roughly is what this development would encompass, and it's 30 miles outside of the city limits. You know, they was talking about tax revenue. It was going to generate so much tax revenue, right? And a certain
Tax revenue
percentage
for the city of Cullman.
and for the county. They touted that they projected like $3.2 million for the county commission. But the roads in Cullman County are already in bad shape. This whole gas tax that I was against in 2018, the reason why I was involved in that race hasn't helped Cullman out in the rural areas anyway. It may have helped us on the interstate, so I'm not going to say it hadn't helped there. But as far as the county commission, it hasn't helped. So you're going to build this big development that's going to increase traffic exponentially out there, and you're going to take a county commission that's already struggling with funding to deal with the amount of roads they have now. Now you're upping the traffic. That money's not going to be significant enough to make up for what they're going to now be responsible for if this thing goes to fruition, right? This is just a concept.
Assuming they build out what they're talking about building out, how many additional homes are we adding to Smith Lake, that aren't there now?
The number I heard was 300. But there again, until you see stuff in black and white, that's just what they're saying may happen. It's like 300 houses, couple hundred hotel rooms, and 3 golf courses, I think it was, a private airstrip. So just from the development side, being on the lake, no conventional sewer system would handle that. So now you're talking about having to build a treatment plant. Well, now where's that treatment plant going to, where is it going to pull water in, where it's going to discharge water to? There's going to be a lot of
either that or you have to build a big sewer line in the city of Cullman.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't see them doing that 30 miles worth of sewer line. That would be quite a bit of undertaking, wouldn't it?
So you don't think that you don't think that the revenue that will be generated from the taxes will pay for what it will cost to accommodate this, correct?
I don't think it will. I'm like, we opened up with, I've been a volunteer fireman for over 20 years, and volunteers are already struggling with manpower and funding, and so being 30 miles outside the city, that's who's going to handle the emergency services. It's going to be the volunteers.
Wouldn't this new deal, since it be in the city limits of Cullman now, it would be handled by Cullman Emergency Services and Cullman Fire Department?
If they try to dispatch from 30 miles away, it's going to roll over.
I'm guessing they're going to have to build a station closer.
They would have to.
And they're probably going to send all those kids from those 300 homes to Cullman City schools.
Possibly. Depends on what's closest to it. Where I live, out on Battleground, let me back up. Before I moved into Cullman, when I was in Morgan County, right? Decatur City had a police jurisdiction out into Danville. Decatur City was supposed to provide the fire emergency services, correct? guess who? Guess what kind of conundrum that started, because the dispatch would dispatch Decatur City and then wait 10 minutes and dispatch the county. We would still show up way before the city would, but we could have been there sooner had we been dispatched first. So that I'm just saying that in saying it'll be something similar with the city of Cullman. Even if they built a small department out there with that amount of homes, there's no way they would be able to support the services. They would either still be supplemented by the county and the volunteers, and depends on how their dispatch would work, how that would affect the residents in the, that was under that jurisdiction.
So you think there's a logistics problem as well?
I think there's a logistics problem as well. Being that far outside of the city limits, I think it really sets a bad precedence, because not only that, if this goes through and they annex it in, what's to say that the development doesn't want somebody else's property adjoining it? They want to expand. So then are we going to get into eminent domain? Because now I need another 10 acres and it's for the good of my development. So now are we going to be able to eminent domain, surrounding property owners? I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen with that. That's the concerns of a lot of the people out in the county. They didn't ask for this, had no voice in this. And quite frankly, it was going to be done in the darkness. The only reason we found out was because one of the county commissioners, somehow he got wind of it and he brought it to everybody's attention. If it wasn't for that, this would have been a done deal and nobody in Cullman would have ever heard one thing about it. So that doesn't sit well with people either. You're supposed to have, when something like this happens, you should get the input from the public. Public should be able to have some kind of input on it, but we weren't given any. There was no notice.
Is there any other issues that are as important right now to the citizens of Cullman County that you're going to bring up in this election?
It's going to be the leadership. We've got some good folks locally, but I believe the people in Cullman doesn't feel like they've got a voice in Montgomery. They don't feel that they've got any leadership in Montgomery. Without a voice, what do you have? You can. People are paying a little more attention now since everything that's going on in national politics. I think it's got people at the TV watching social media. They're kind of watching what's going on, which is kind of a little bit different. I know in past we all have kind of, occasionally seen things that was happening and paid a little attention here or there, but we wasn't really focused on any of it. Since January, I think there's been a lot of focus on government efficiency. There's been a lot of focus. So now people are paying a little more attention. Not to saying what's going on now in Montgomery hadn't been going on for the last 20 years. It's just nobody paid that much attention to it. They kind of felt like, well, it doesn't matter. That's Montgomery. That doesn't affect me. But after seeing what's happening and today, people are paying a little more attention. And I think that's where their focus is. They want a voice in Montgomery. They don't want just somebody with a title beside their name. They want somebody that'll come back to the community and educate them on what's going on, get their input, and go back and take their values to Montgomery and fight for the things that are meaningful for us locally.
This past session, the legislature, they passed the largest education budget in the history of the state. That's $9.9 billion. They passed the largest general fund budget in the history of the state. That's $3.7 billion. Do you think there could be larger tax cuts than what we're currently getting out of our, conservative Republican supermajority?
Of course we could. They should have done away with taxes on groceries. That could have been done without any question. Instead they cut 1% off of it. I mean, the amount of money that they have right now, like you said, is the largest amount they've ever had. They could have helped the everyday working Alabamian, and they could have did some tax cuts. I'm not seeing the conservative majority. That's not what I see in Montgomery. I see that's what we're being touted as, but I don't see the let's reduce, have smaller government, and we'll be a little more fiscal conservative when they're taking in this kind of money, but they're not trying to cut taxes or do anything for the people that's meaningful. To me, I'm like everybody else. I'm starting to question whether we have a conservative majority or not.
John, we've seen those again this year. The gambling bill failed to pass, regardless of what somebody's personal views on it. Do you think the people of Alabama should have a chance to vote on it?
That's what I'm hearing everybody say. You know, every time the topic of gambling comes up, it's why don't I get a vote? Let me vote on it. But on that, I do see two sides of that coin. You know, I would love to be able to vote on it myself, whichever way I'd vote, right? I think it's everybody's choice. But from what I'm seeing in Montgomery, I don't know that I really trust those folks to put together a solid plan to manage the money or to actually put forth a bill that would actually benefit the people that, you know, everybody says lottery is supposed to go for education. Well, so was alcohol taxes too, but how many municipalities is still got standing at the street corner with a boot needing more money because, you know, they're underfunded? Well, that's what the alcohol tax was supposed to do. So every time we talk about creating another program to generate funds for education, where's it going? When Brandon, you'll know this number more than me, because I deal with so many numbers. Sometimes one will intertwine with the other. But state school board superintendent, they was trying to give him that huge raise. You know, couldn't that money have went into the classroom? I mean, the bureaucracy of education, the money that they're spending, you know, they need more money in the classroom. They don't need more money in Montgomery that making decisions in the classroom. I don't know. That was a big deal too. People were very upset when that was pouring through Facebook when they were talking about the raise that the state superintendent was trying to get.
So Brandon just mentioned the education budget, what, 9-something billion? I mean, and we're
9.9
still
billion.
okay, and we're still what, like 48, 49th in almost every category.
Well, no, they've actually improved a lot in the last couple of years. Not so much in performance, but a bunch of states who kept their children out of school a lot longer than we do dropped in performance a bunch. So we've jumped from like 50th in math and 46th in reading 4 or 5 years ago to I think like 32nd and 32.
Okay, my bad. So should we look at? I mean, we see all this money that's going there. Should we look at more like what was it, the Choose Act, where we're giving so much money for each parent to send the kids where they want to go to school?
School choice should be for every parent. You know, I honestly do. If you choose to send your kid to a private Christian school, then that's your choice, right? I really think there's too much political garbage in our education system. I think it's weighted down with it. So, you know, I understand why parents want to send their kids to private schools, and our tax money should follow our children. There's a lot of people that are paying taxes for the public education system that's been paying for private school for years. You know, and I'm one of them. You know, my kids are in private school. I don't, you know, I don't get to participate in the Choose Act, right? It'll be a few more years, I guess, before I'm eligible. But you know, I was fortunate enough to have a good job and work, and I could afford it. And a lot of families would love to send their kids to get a more personalized education but they couldn't afford it. So the Choose Act is helping a lot of people. Then it gives them that choice, right? Now, if they don't feel like they're getting the best education where they're at, they can send them to a private school. That way, instead of, having just say, 32 people in a class, they can go down to 18 people in a class. It's, to me, education should have always been a parent's choice. It's the parents' responsibility to make sure that their kids are raised in the manner that they want them to be raised in. And I think for a long time, parents were sending their kids to school and the school was trying to raise them. So anyway, I know that's completely off topic there, but I do believe in school choice. I believe it should have been done a long time ago. I know there are some really good public schools. There's some great teachers in the public school system. So I'm not trying to take anything away from them at all. But if a parent doesn't feel like they're getting what they need to get out of something, they should have the choice.
Recently, the state lost their latest appeal of the redistricting. I know that doesn't really affect your end of the state, but we've now got two court order drawn districts that stretch from the Montgomery line all the way to the from the Mississippi line all the way to the Georgia line. Do you think the legislature botched that when it got sent back to them and they redistricted it? And you think that could have been done better?
Well, yeah, but I'm of the opinion anytime that you're forcing to me, that was a discriminatory bill all the way across, telling people they have to make districts for certain classes of people or certain races. That's the same thing as, I thought it was crazy that the federal government does that to states, but from the decree they was given and from the court system, it looks like they botched it. They were given direction, whether we agree with it or not, and I probably shouldn't say what my personal feelings are about it, but whether we agree with it or not, the federal government did tell us to create these district lines, and for them to come back and say what they did, then we botched it. Undoubtedly, we didn't do a good enough job. And that, you're right, that affects several people down around Mobile County in that area. I know there's some races that could affect down in that area in South Alabama.
Isn't it illegal? I mean, Brandon, will you answer this for me? Ain't gerrymandering on racial lines supposed to be unconstitutional?
Supposed to be, but it seems like the federal government can tell you to do it and it makes it okay.
Yeah, that's what I was confused about, because we have a minority majority district, but it's supposed to be unconstitutional. So I'm confused on all this.
I'm kind of confused.
You're not the only one, Christopher.
It's 2025. We're not in George Wallace days, right? I don't understand. I'm like you. It's illegal except for when the feds tell you to do
it. Speaking of that right there, I know this probably doesn't affect Alabama, the public schools much, but do you think the president's finally making the right decision to get rid of this schools, get rid of this critical race theory? Because I just really looked at what that was teaching the other night, and it's teaching people to play the victim. And
it is saying that. If you look at today's society, everybody's playing the victim. It's everywhere you go, and that's exactly what that. I don't even understand where critical race theory even come into education. Where does it have a place in our education system? Teach people the history. Teach them. When I was in history class, U.S. history, or you learn enough in history as it was written to understand where you're at today as a society and where the world's at. Now you're trying to go in and rewrite history, and you're trying to put your own spin on it. That, to me, that's all critical race theory is doing. It's trying to put a whole new spin on our history. mankind's done horrendous things since, inception, right? I mean, it's human, but they're trying to write the narrative to where they see fit and create a whole new class of victims.
During this past session, the legislature tried to address the amount of of course, I didn't even know these terms like 5 years ago, but psychoactive cannabinoids derived from hemp, which, was inadvertently legalized by the 2018 Farm Bill. And so all this stuff appeared all over the state. Instead of banning it, instead of allowing it in all the stores, the legislature limited it to grocery stores and like standalone, vape hemp shops, and signed regulation of it to the ABC board and created a new tax to pay for all this. Would you have handled it that way?
ABC board should have been gotten rid of a long time ago. We shouldn't even be in competition with small business. That's what makes me question the conservative majority too. ABC board is in direct competition with small businesses. The government's not supposed to compete with business owners. It's not what the government's there for. So I heard just a little bit about the hemp bill. When medical marijuana was passed, nothing's ever happened with that, has it? They've kind of stalled because they did the
that has got
lottery.
tied up in the court. So no
They
one
did the lottery and then got sued over how they handled the lottery. And it's kind of stalemated, right? What is so complicated about passing and enforcing a medical marijuana bill? Because in my mind, that should not be stuff that you smoke. That should be some kind of pill form or something that's
there's
taken.
no smokables allowed.
Exactly. I don't know where.
The issue they ran into is the bill says that there are 5 business entities allowed to do this.
Right.
36 business entities applied for those 5 licenses. And the other 31 that didn't get them said, well, we didn't get them. Now we're going to court.
Why did they only choose 5 though? Why was it only 5?
That's what the legislature decided. They didn't want to have a bunch of businesses growing and processing and marketing medical cannabis. It would be 5, just 5, and the commission cannot increase the number beyond 5.
Isn't there other states that are already doing this?
Yes, most states are doing this.
And then you
And
mean
they
we
have more
couldn't
than
have
5?
we couldn't have took the learnings from those other states and applied them to Alabama before we passed the bill?
Well, they said they did that and they wanted to have the most restrictive law of any state that allowed medical cannabis. And we got a law that's so restrictive that we can't get a court to allow us to actually implement it.
How can you say I don't want something without coming out and saying I don't want something? Make it so restrictive it won't work.
Kind of a form of like communism, because you're restricting the free markets if you're only allowing 5 people, companies or whatever to produce something. Or
you are picking winners and losers, literally.
I mean, so if I got a bunch of friends in the legislature or whatever on this board and you don't, and I come in there and
well, no legislator served on the board, so they kind of weren't entirely happy with what the commission did either.
They botched it up pretty bad. I know a lot of cancer patients, and I know that the medical side of that does provide pain relief. It keeps people off of opioids. They could have done a better job.
It helps with appetite too for cancer patients.
It helps them eat, increases their appetites. Yes, there's the legislature, in my mind, there's a lot of things that they could do to help people. They have the ability and the power to help people. but
Brandon,
they choose to go a whole different route some days, it seems like.
Brandon went over some bills with me the other night, and I can't even remember, but it was like, create some kind of board for tourism somewhere to oversee something. It seems like, do you have an opinion on why they get into all these bills that seem like they're not
They
worth the
don't,
paper they're printed on?
just so they get their name on the paper saying that they passed the bill. I mean, what was it? Is several years ago, my years fly by a little too quick, but remember they passed a bill making some aquifer, some creek somewhere, the state aquifer source for Alabama. I mean, they pass a lot of ludicrous stuff that means absolutely nothing, and me as a taxpayer could care less about. And it seems like there's more of that goes on than and who knows, on some of those bills it may have some pork built in it that we don't see that gives them money to do what they want to. I don't it's kind of that to that point. I know we've got the longest, this is a saying, so everybody looks at us and says Alabama's got the longest, most corrupt constitution in the United States, right? Well, why can't we do something about that? Why can't you
Well,
pass bills to clean it up?
they did go back in and recompile the Alabama Constitution and were able to eliminate about 22% of it, where, there are like amendments were added, and then amendments were later added, making the First Amendment redundant. So you don't have a constitutional amendment that if you read it, it's like, whoa, wow, this does X, Y, and Z. No, it doesn't. If you go 200 amendments later, there was one that struck that amendment out. So the 2022 rewrite of the 1901 Constitution is about, about a quarter smaller than what we did.
Still the longest in the world, isn't it?
I think it is, yes. And we added more amendments in this session if they get ratified.
We need to do something about that. I don't know, I've got a long laundry list of things that mean something to me, and probably a lot of people just like me, but it doesn't seem like what working class Alabamians think matters a lot some days. It's just like when it comes to medical protections. Why couldn't they have worked on a bill that said Blue Cross had to pay for whatever test your doctor prescribed? Instead, your doctor prescribes something, an MRI, some pencil pusher on a desk that doesn't have a medical degree. You can go, oh, well, I don't deem that medically necessary, and he can deny it, right? They can deny it. So why can't they pass legislation that gives patients protections, helps people, right? But instead you see these bills that really mean absolutely nothing.
They did pass a pharmacy benefit manager reform bill this year. What do you think about that?
The people that was pushing for it had a whole lot better bill trying to get through there than what they actually did. And they had to fight tooth and nail to get what was passed. So they took a step in the right direction, don't get me wrong. But I believe that the group that was pushing for it, trying to get this bill pushed through, probably had a much cleaner bill that would have helped more of these local pharmacies than what actually got pushed through. But I'd have to read the entire bill to see. I just got synopsis from some of the guys that was trying to help it through.
John, you seem to have a good command of the issues. Do you think you're gonna be able to articulate those to the voters? Because you mentioned a while ago about people having a short memory.
Yeah, I've just got to keep pushing. I'm gonna keep pushing the issues over the next year. If I can keep this Senate bill, this Senate bill means a lot to a lot of people. It's why they're mad about it. It's more of they didn't have a voice. That's what's so bad. And I really don't, be honest with you, I can't understand how anybody that is elected to serve the public would say, well, you know what? This is the largest economic development for North Alabama. And whether you want to be part of it or not, I'm going to be. To me, that was the wrong approach, and that is exactly what was said on Facebook Live when it was talked about. He was going to be part of the largest economic development in North Alabama. To me, that was wrong. You should have tabled it. He didn't have any problem tabling the lottery vote. There was a lot of people that was mad when he said there would be no lottery vote in Alabama. So this bill could have been tabled too until the next session, to when the special elections had been through and Cullman actually had representation in the House. You know,
There
if you
was
can.
a bill this session that would have required that the each public school post a copy of the Ten Commandments as well as other historical documents somewhere in the school building. That passed the House, but went nowhere in the Senate. What's your opinion on that legislation?
I'm a very, very big history person, and I'm also, religious. So I have mixed emotions about that. Me as a Christian says, yes, that should be posted. There's a lot of knowledge from a young age reading the Ten Commandments that I think it can make an impression on you when you're young. But the other side of me too says that people have the freedom of religion. So I don't necessarily think it's right for you to push things on. There's some things I just don't feel like you should make a force down people's throats that doesn't want it. Of course, children, they don't know any different. It's not going to bother them. It's the parents more that'll get involved on that. But do I think it should have passed? Personal feelings, yes. But what my district would say about that, I couldn't answer for them, right? But if my district felt like that's something that they wanted in Cullman, Winston, and Marion County, I'd have been the first one up there voting yes for it, because I would be representing the feelings of the folks that I was there to represent. So, not really sure why it died in the Senate, to be honest with you, but that's kind of a long way around to tell you tell you what I think. But on a personal level, I wish it would have passed, but the professional level, is that what their citizens in their district wanted? Is that why they voted the way they did?
So if you're elected, you just mentioned want to do what your constituents wanted. Do you plan on holding regular town halls to find out, to gauge their pulse on issues? Hey, you want me to vote for this? Regardless of my own personal convictions, if the people wanted it, would you vote the way they wanted?
I would. I believe in servant leadership. That's the way I've always been. And that's the way I manage the plant that I have. Servant leadership means a lot, and that's having empathy for those around you and listening to their needs. You're there to represent them and to help them. I could be completely against something. If that's what the majority of the people that I was there to represent wanted, I'm there to represent their feelings, because we could all, if we went by what we feel personally on every decision that we made, and me as a manager, if I did everything on how I personally felt about stuff, I may not be that good of a manager, right? I have to understand what I'm managing and who I'm managing. I have to do what's the smartest, best decision for the growth of the people that I'm around.
There's about roughly 125,000 people in a typical Alabama State Senate district. We typically deal with about 950 or so bills in a 30-day legislative session. I, as a full-time reporter, haven't read a fraction of those bills in that short period of time that we have to consider them, given they're changing throughout the legislative process. Do you think it's realistic that you can know what the majority of people of the 125,000 in your district think about a bill that probably few, if any of them, have ever actually read?
It's a challenge, of course. I don't think you should have that many bills going through the legislature in 30 days. And I also don't think they should be more than a couple pages long. They should be short enough and to the point enough that you could read every bill that you voted on. If you haven't read every bill thoroughly that you vote on, you shouldn't vote on it. So you trim that down to what it should be going through the Senate. You may have a little bit of time. I really don't, I guess I don't have a good answer for that. Besides, you'd have to do the best you could. But I really don't understand why, as a governing body, you would let that many bills flow through without actually knowing what you're passing. Because there's no way anybody knows what they're passing if
there's 105 members of the House and 35 members of the Senate, and all of them show up with like 5 or 6 bills they want to pass, and pretty quick you're at 500-600 bills.
Leadership.
Go ahead.
No, sorry.
Well, this is something me and Brandon has talked about, some other people. So there was a bill that passed from the governor, dealing with police officers. I think we're all back to blue here in Alabama, but this is saying that if something happens and whatever kind of stop, they're not going to be prosecuted criminally or civilly. Are we going too far by giving them an extra layer of protection?
It doesn't say they're not going to be prosecuted criminally or civilly. It just says they can't be if they were not acting recklessly and they were acting within the scope of their duties as a law enforcement officer. Then it's up for the court to decide if that shield of immunity holds in that particular case or not.
I mean, don't they already have that though?
Not
like they
spelled
used
out
to.
that way.
It seemed like they did have some immunities, but since 2020, when you've got these anti-police ideals going through, I don't know. It's you got people that's scared to stand up if something's right now. They're bending more to the will of the mob crowd than actually what should be right. If you look at a lot of these things where police officers are involved, and maybe I'm a little biased there because I work with law enforcement, probably more than the general, person in the public would because of being in the fire service. You're going to have a bad apple in every bunch, and you're going to have the data points that show that's a bad apple, right? But every mistake somebody makes doesn't make them doesn't make it to where they were bad. Somebody sitting there cussing you, and it's just a scenario. You've got somebody sitting there being belligerent. He's using language, and he looks like he's, he reached down to pull something, but he was already reported to have a firearm, right? Well, the cop defends himself, and used to be they would look at the footage and they'd go, well, even though that was that's an accident, that wasn't actually a firearm, but he didn't do that maliciously. He was doing that in self-defense and the duties of his job. He was there performing a police officer duty, right? Nowadays, it's a flip of the coin. Is that going to be was that just a tragic accident because of the circumstances, or did now all of a sudden he intentionally shot somebody? So this police immunity bill, I don't know. It could go. I don't know. You got a lot of emotions right now on that subject. So would they go too far? Possibly, but if you don't have some kind of protections, who wants to be a cop and serve the public And in that capacity, if they're afraid that they'll go to prison for any mistake they make or anything, even if it wasn't a mistake, even if it was justified, if it could be turned around into something it's not. I mean, how are we going to get good men and women in uniform if we don't give them some kind of protections that are spelled out? No, that makes sense, but
I kind of see where you're going with that because, oh yeah, I kind of see where you're going with that because I'm sure with my experience with police officers and yours and Brandon's, I found that if I'm polite and compliant with their orders, then I've always got to go home and nothing's happened to me. If you become aggressive with them, then you're up in the ante there. Most of the stuff that I've seen, people have brought this on themselves.
yeah, I've seen a lot of mistakes, just like stand your ground laws. People are very misconstrued on what stand your ground means. Stand your ground means you can protect you and your family. It doesn't mean you can protect your four-wheeler or your motorcycle, right? The law can be interpreted in the wrong way by people that doesn't actually know the law. So there's been a lot of tragedy happen, but if we don't have some kind of protections, we're not going to have good people serving in that capacity. Like you just said, I mean, I've been compliant, and I'm not going to say I wasn't probably a smart aleck a time or two when I thought I was getting harassed for no reason. But if they told me to put my keys on the dash, put my keys on the dash. They told me to roll down the window, I rolled down my window, right? I didn't refuse to do what they said. I did what they asked, and I told them I disagreed with it, but I did it in a manner that wasn't threatening. And then when I would just choose to go to court, if I didn't like what I was getting, I'd go to court and I'd argue with the DA and the judge. And, they'd either side with me or side against me, right? But it's better to have your day in court in the courtroom than it is to try it on the side of the road.
Absolutely.
The state of Alabama, and it seems like all 67 counties and probably 100 municipalities are now in the business of offering economic incentives, tax abatements, free land. I've seen contracts where we've cleared sites for projects. Are we going a little bit too far in this state to lure jobs where we just finance, offer incentives for companies to come here or stay here in some cases?
Well, we've been very fortunate, and we're a manufacturing powerhouse with all the automobile manufacturing we have in North Alabama. Those created a lot of jobs and a lot of opportunities. I do not think the government should get involved in financing projects for big companies. There are ways to give them some incentives toward their infrastructure that they'll make back over a period of time. So it's got to make sense for the people, what's good for the communities. But can you go too far? I'm sure you can. There should be a limit on the amount and type of incentives that you can offer to lure a company. Historically, the South was already appealing because we were least likely to have unions. That's why a lot of companies moved to the South, was to get away from the unions that they were part of in the North, right? So you come down here, the cost of living's a little bit less, so you can pay the workforce, comparable to that, right? So there's a lot of incentives for companies to come here just because of where we're at. But there are some incentives and tax abatements that you could give as long as it doesn't impact, your social services that you're giving to your residents. But I don't think we should be we shouldn't be financing projects for companies.
Well, I think that's all I got for you, unless Brandon's got something else.
No, I thank you so much for coming on. We're coming right at an hour here.
Well, I
Is there anything
appreciate
you'd
y'all
like to
having me.
say? Yeah,
Well, I mean, I would just like for people to keep listening and paying attention and give me the opportunity to earn their support. Uh, I've got a good job. I don't need a job. This isn't about, I'm not looking for a job. If I was smart, I probably would stick to my day job and not have the headaches and the blood pressure problems and the aggravation that this would bring somebody. But I'm a very passionate person. I believe in standing up for people, and things like this get me involved. And win or lose, as long as I can make some kind of positive impact, any issue that I bring up, anything that I can bring attention to, if it helps people in the end, then I've set out and accomplished what I was trying to, and that was to help people. So, but I do appreciate y'all giving me the opportunity. It's Brandon, I try to read yours and Brandon's post whenever I see them, and I know Brandon's been around a long time. I've read a lot of posts over the years, but I know y'all keep your thumb on things. So if I need to know something, I'll try to look you up.
Thank you
thanks a
so
lot,
much.
John. I'll get this loaded up to YouTube and send you over the link to it and share it to your Facebook page and get your message out.
Well, I appreciate it. And, everybody, for years, I made the mistake of trying to go by, James. And when everybody in reality knows me by JR, everybody in my life's always known me by JR. Nobody.
I called you John, didn't I?
No, you're good, because I had an uncle named John. And when I first entered manufacturing in '96, when I got out of high school, Lord, I'm telling my age when I tell that, but
Well, I got out in '95.
Everybody in the plant either called me JR or they called me John, because my uncle's name was John. And so he was Big John and I was Little John. So,
Okay.
so they, the older folks, they'd call me Little John, and that was just because of my uncle. And everybody else knew me by JR. So I think by going by JR, more people know exactly who I am, and I think it's a little easier to remember than anything else. So, but yeah, I did. No worries there. I went by Little John for a long time down at the plant when I was at Wolverine. So,
Thanks for clarification.
Hey, and I'll answer to it, because when I see them guys, they still call me that. But I do appreciate it, and Brandon, it was nice to talk to you as well, and I appreciate it, Chris. I really enjoyed it, and I appreciate the opportunity. And hopefully, I was clearer than mud.
I think you did a good job.
I hate it sometimes when I'm trying to answer something, and I look back and it's like, did I actually answer that, or did I go around it in circles? I don't mean to do that. I just
That's like giving interviews. Just like you get done with one of these, just like, why didn't I ask this? Why didn't I ask this question where it made sense?
Yeah, I do that all the
Try not
time.
to
Like, I'll
watch your
ask the
podcast
question, I'll be like, God, I just sounded like an idiot asking that question.
uh,
I'm what somebody say, like a Trump thing. You're stupid. you're an idiot. So, try not to say something. I'm like, God, I sounded like a complete idiot.
hey, that's more of a reason for people to know who you are, because usually when they know you and they know if they know you a little bit on a personal level, and they know that you mean well by what you're doing, they don't always necessarily take your words. They know the underlying meaning of what you're trying to do, right? You can jumble the words up and they still know what you're trying to accomplish for them.
Well, thanks, JR.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I think Chris may have froze up on us.
Yeah, Chris is in charge, and apparently he's the one with the worst signal.
Oh man, but anytime I would enjoy talking to y'all anytime.
Hey,
Anytime
send
we
out a
had.
press announcement. I heard was talking with Dr. Bill, Chitwood, he's at something politics. And he's like, why haven't we got a press release from this guy? Well, we haven't.
Well, I am trying to. I've been writing it, so I'm trying to get it right.
Okay.
My next thing was the only thing I knew was to email like the local papers and stuff. So
Yeah.
if you've got any contacts that you could share with me, that would be a good source to send it out. I'll get it
Yeah,
sent out.
send me an email to Brandon M. Reporter at gmail.com.
All right, let me see. Say M as in
Brandon, Brandon, M
right,
for mostly.
right.
Reporter at gmail.com.
Reporter at Gmail.
Yeah, reporter
At
at
gmail.com. Okay.
gmail.com.
I'll send you an email with my information and
And I'll forward you Dr. Bill's contact list, maybe a few other. There's probably a press list out there somewhere. in
yeah.
the box I can forward.
So 8 years ago when I tried this, I was fumbling my way through it, and things have come a long way since then. With
It's
the
the
right.
kind of thing you almost have to do one time to know how it's done. You just sort of hope
Yes.
you win that first.
Well, you know, I believe that we've all got a path in life, right? And it's chosen for us. If it would have been my time then, I would have been there. But if I would have went into office in 2018, I wouldn't be where I'm at in my career today, right? So since then, I went back to college, got a associates in engineering management. I've become a plant manager for a chemical company, managed a plant for 3 years in Tennessee. And then I took a job with my current company managing the largest edible oil refinery in the state. So, if I'd have went down that path in 2018, I wouldn't be in the position I am today in my career. So
We're doing what? Canola oil?
I do soy and canola, and anything that you touch come from my company, whether it's Krispy
Okay.
Kreme, McDonald's.
Y'all can do soybean, corn, the whole 9 yards.
Yes, sir. We don't do corn at my facility, but my company does.
Okay.
When you first said edible oil, I thought you was talking about the CBD oil. I was like,
No, you don't eat too much of that. God help.
I was like, okay, so we got the edible. Okay, so he's in the gummy, but like
I bet you
what's
could
his name?
run that through that plant. But
Yeah.
you could
what-
sell it when you made it in those quantities.
Cool. What's his name? The guy that's running for governor, get Chig Chad Martin.
Yeah, Chad Chigmartin. That'd be more his deal.
Yeah. Yeah, I said he was on Facebook Live a while ago again. He's a Democrat, right?
Yes.
And he has one of these stores that he sells
Yeah.
stuff out of.
He's
Okay.
probably a good one to get on to about how many products that he has that he can no longer sell.
Well, 4 years ago I was going to interview him, and then I was getting home to do it. So I said, "Hey, it's going to be about 10 minutes late. Is that okay?" And he flipped out and just went off on me for that. And I was like, "Okay, dude, I'm sorry that I was going to be 10 minutes late."
You got to be careful with Chad Chigmartin because he will fly off the handle.
Yeah, I was like,
He'd be a good governor in that.
What part of Alabama are y'all in? Where y'all located?
I live in
I'm in
St. Clair
Blount.
County. Although right here I'm at my office in Montgomery at the moment.
Okay.
I'm in Locust Fork.
Locust Fork. I know the name well. I had a friend of mine, the lady he married was a teacher there for a little while, and now they're back in Danville. But that's the only reason I know the name Locust Fork, right? But then I started seeing it. I think there's an interstate sign that I'll see it on when I pass, but haven't had the pleasure of visiting there. But
Well, if you ever
I've
on
heard of it.
79 highway, I mean, so I can go like I gotta forget what name of the county road is, but it puts me out like right by Bangor Cave if I'm going to Cullman, and then go through Hansville. And there's another way. Yeah, that's pretty much the same way because I go up there to where that Good Hope is sometimes. It's been a while.
Well, if y'all are ever up my way, give me a shout. I'd love to meet for breakfast or dinner or whatever. And I try to make it to Montgomery when I can. It's been a busy first of the year for me this year.
Understood. Well, thanks for joining us.
Well, I appreciate it. I think Chris froze up again. Hey, before Spectrum come out to my house, I was the same way. I had CenturyLink.
Oh, heck, I can remember dial up. I can only imagine trying to do one of these with dial up.
Oh, God, you had a phone call that would knock
CompuServe.
you offline.
Yeah, you remember the old crashing sound the modem would make as it was trying to connect to the internet?
Yeah.
That was so high tech. It's making all these cool noises.
I wonder what my kids would think about that if they heard that, right?
Or think about like, I was at my buddy's house the other day and he's trying to, he's fixing a move. He's pulling all these tapes and all these VHS tapes and stuff and movies from back in the day. And I was like, God, I mean, I remember when, VCR was so cool.
Right.
Yeah, we do
I
a
still
flea
have
market at our church. You'd be surprised how many people donate their VHS tapes from back in the day. Oh, this was a cool tape. I just wish I had something that could play any of this.
Well, I'm not old enough to actually, I still can remember cars that had the 8 tracks in them. And then,
Yeah.
we went to the cassette tapes. Then you had cassette and DVDs. Then it was just DVDs. And now I don't think any vehicles have DVD players in them anymore.
Yeah, they don't even put DVD players in. I remember it was the coolest thing ever when I saw my first car that had like a 12 CD where we do
changing.
12 CDs at a time. And like you put 12 in, I can listen to all kinds of songs. This is so clever.
Yep. I remember my first CD player was in 95. It was either the end of 95, early 96. I remember getting my first CD player.
Yeah, my truck had a cassette and CD player in it. In 90, it was like a 95, I think. Yeah. Yeah, my buddy Clay was telling me today, he's got a kid just turned 16 and got him a car, and there's what is it, Life 360 or something that like his wife's got his kid on so he can follow him everywhere, and she's trying to get him on it. He goes, no, I don't want you to know where I'm at. He said, for all these years we didn't have the GPS, we didn't have none of this stuff, and life was fine.
Yeah,
I was like,
how insane it would seem now to leave your house without a phone at all.
Right.
And we did it all the time. Well, I'm going to North Carolina now.
A few months ago, I had a flat and didn't have my cell phone with me, and I did not know what I was going to do. I mean, I was thinking, I didn't know I was going to survive. Luckily, a tow truck came by, but I mean, what did we do for cell phones? I remember driving to the beach and using a map.
Remember when you had MapQuest?
Yes.
I remember my grandparents had a place down in I think it was called Lake Hill, Florida. It was right below Daytona. And then my in-laws was in Titusville. So remember the last time I drove down there before I had a TomTom was during Christmas time, and wife said, "You want to open Christmas present before we leave?" And I'm like, "Nah, we'll get it when we get back, Okay. So we get to Atlanta, and of course, you know how Atlanta traffic is. And I was pulling a trailer, and I tried to get off the interstate, make my way back around the interstate. I promise you, I was in Atlanta for 5 hours trying to get out of Atlanta. And when we got back home, she said, "Here you go, open your Christmas present, honey." And I opened it, and it was a TomTom. That would have sure been nice, me trying to find my way through Atlanta with a paper map. Because MapQuest just had the directions that she printed off before we left, right? That didn't apply to all the sub routes I was trying to take.
You know, the other day, I was looking at my phone, you know, tell you how long you've been on or whatever. And I was looking how many hours I spent a day on Facebook. And I've only been on it since like 2017. And I thought, what the hell did I do all day before before I was on Facebook?
Uh, it's come a long ways, hasn't it? How many numbers
Yeah.
do you remember how many numbers can you remember? Phone numbers.
Oh yeah, people ask me the phone
None.
numbers
My
of
buddy
folks.
Clay
I'm
was
like, I
talking.
have no idea.
Yeah, we were talking about that day. I don't know. You know, used to I dial had numbers by memory. I can't tell you anybody's phone number except for mine.
Right. Yeah, it sure has changed the way we do life. Now, you know, my kids, they don't know what life without cell phones and, you know, internet on their phones is, right? So,
Well,
man, if we had a blackout, like a total blackout, I don't know what would happen to this younger generation. They would go completely
Yeah,
insane.
I'm going to be wondering how this next August, when they all go back to school and find out the legislature banned their cell phones. So it's like, you're just going to pay attention to the teacher in front of the room. There's no watching the movies, looking up the answers, texting your friends. You're just there sitting for 7 hours. That's what we used to do all the time. Just deal with it.
Well, I mean, they need to, or they're not going to learn anything. I mean, with
Yeah,
AI
that's why
today,
we're doing it, is they're not learning anything. But
I mean, with AI, and you know, I mean, I don't even know how they write papers anymore, or is
well, you ask
math.
AI to do it. I mean, that's how they do it.
I mean, or math problems. You know, you just plug the numbers in the computer or in the phone, and
Yeah,
there you
if
got the
you know,
answer
if it
to it.
memorizes all the formulas, hey, what happens if I have this, this, and this? Then the AI tells you the answer. It's like, whoa.
Somebody the other night, they was like I was I was in playing with Facebook, and they was like, "Oh, you're not as smart as you think you are. Solve this problem. Solve this problem." So they started throwing out math problems. So I was putting it right in AI and giving them the answer. They said, "How did you know that so quick?" I was like, "AI, idiot! I mean, I can find anything out with AI now."
Just remember the movie Terminator, though. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I mean, I was, yeah,
Just remember Skynet.
yeah, I remember that. You know, what was the last one? Rise of the Machines.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm thinking, because I mean, it's so like. So the other day I was thinking about getting one of these Samsung watches, you know, it keeps up your blood pressure, blood sugar, and all that. So I was looking at it online, and I was like, okay. And so I wonder what T-Mobile's got them for. So then I call T-Mobile, and you know, the automated voice comes on and goes, "You're looking for accessories, is that correct?" And the guy gets on the phone. I was like, "How the hell did you know that? How did you know what I was looking at?"
It's like having a conversation. We could be talking about, you know, I don't know, the new zero turn or the newer style tractor we want. Go open up Facebook an hour later, and now all of a sudden you've got ads on what kind of tractor we were talking about. And it's like, how the hell how does Facebook know what we were what I'm interested in looking at?
Yeah, I
I wasn't
started
on
seeing those
Facebook.
the other night, but I noticed this a while back. You know, because I believe it or not, I was looking up something. I thought I was having some health problems, which I wasn't, thank God. But next thing I know, I'm getting all this final expense stuff popping up, and they was calling me. I was like, "Stop calling me on that, okay? I'm not worried about the VA's going to bury me." And then the other day, I thought, well, maybe it did because I was looking it up. Me and my buddy Clay was talking. I said, "I'm thinking about going to law school." And the next thing I know, every law school was popped up there. I'm getting phone calls from law schools. I'm like, they're listening to everything we do.
Scary, isn't it?
It is scary. I mean, because remember, what was it? Was Snowden that was saying how they're you know, watching us through our TVs? And I was listening to, I was staying with the CIA the other day. He was a former CIA agent. He said, you know, I can know what you're doing even when your phone's off. And I was like, no, you can't. So he does whatever he's, you know, hacks it. He goes, okay, at 9:01 you was at Chick-fil-A. At 9:15 you was at the post office. At 9:37 you was here. It's like, oh my God.
You want to leave the house. That's why you left the house without your cell phone the other day. You just happen to have a flat.
Yeah, just happened. I don't know where I was at. Yeah, I don't see how anybody gets away with, you know, committing any kind of crimes today. The way they
Oh,
follow
you're an
everything
idiot
they
if
do.
you're a criminal today.
No
Yeah,
doubt. The cameras are everywhere. Everybody's got them on their doorbell, you know, doorbell cameras. Cameras are everywhere. Why would you think you could do anything? I
Yeah, I
mean,
mean, and your vehicle is tracking where you've been. It's like, oh, hey, your car was at the murder scene, your cell phone was at the murder scene, and you're saying you didn't do it. I mean, just how does that actually work? I mean, hell, I could be Columbo now,
well, hey, it's
seeing
like,
everybody within a mile of the body.
and we've tracked you all the way to the bridge. We know where you stopped, so we know where to look in the water for said item.
Yeah, I mean, like Google, what is Google when where you've been that whole month, how many miles you drove, what hours. It's like this is really unnerving. I mean, you look at Google Maps, it's showing what a picture right up at somebody's front door. So if you're getting that, I mean, the governments can probably look right inside your bedroom.
Oh yeah. There's no telling the capabilities that they have, right? There's no such thing as privacy anymore. In the Patriot Act, I mean it was the open of Pandora's box on people, really.
Yeah, nobody really knows how evil that bill was.
Right. So, and with today's technology, there's nothing that's private anymore. It kills me because people, I even know people that won't put their thumbprint in their door lock, right? No, I'll just have a code. It's like, why? Why? I don't want them to track me with my thumbprint. It's like, man, they
Yeah,
know
they're
how
already
many
tracking
times
the car.
I know how many times you went to the restroom yesterday. I mean, they don't need your thumbprint. They've already got it.
I mean, if you
Yeah,
can make a phone call from the car, you know the car is pinging every cell tower as he goes from one to the other, whether you're using it or not. The car's like,
Right.
okay, we're here. We're in Andalusia. We're in Enterprise. We're in Troy.
Yeah, some other day said he was going to on Facebook said they're going to report me for criminal harassment. And I was like, you're on my post doing this because they're going to get you. I'm like, I don't commit crimes. I mean, I don't even speed. So they can come look at me all they want. I'm not doing anything. And he said something. I was like, look, I'm a gun owner. I'm already on a watch list. Ex-Army too. I mean, yeah, I'm sure they're knowing everything about me.
Well, I'll see y'all later.
Okay,
Good
talk
one.
to you guys later.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye bye.